Well, hi again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. If you've not been here before, I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm a psychic medium, and I give my insights into what's happening in the world, give some insights into my thoughts, my feelings, my predictions about what's going to happen. And today I'm going to talk about Elon Musk, and in particular about how his influence that he's having at the moment on UK politics and why. And I'm also going to talk a bit about his past life, who I feel he was in a past life. And I'd be interested to know if you agree with some of my thoughts about this. So we're going to make some predictions about all this. And let me say, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, welcome to the show again. Thanks for joining me and thanks for all your support over 2024. And to show your support, always please give us a thumbs up at the beginning of each video if you can, because it helps the algorithm. So if you do enjoy my shows, show you appreciate it. I know you've done it thousands of times before, but do it again and it helps the show tremendously. Well, we're going to talk about Elon Musk a bit today, but I've also had a few other predictions come up. First of all, I'll just quickly mention that some other thoughts, because I see that Trudeau in Canada is signing his resignation, and thank you for those comments many of you have been making about this, because if you've been put it on my 2025 3-hour-long prediction program, where I made my prediction there that he would resign in 2025, and it's only just in 2025 now, isn't it? So that's quite interesting. I'll probably cover that in another episode later. I also quickly mentioned the earthquakes in Tibet as well, because I had made a prediction some time ago that there would be a massive earthquake in the Himalayas. This isn't it. This has been quite nasty, quite destructive, and obviously our thoughts go out to those people there. But I feel that 2025 is going to be a very dangerous year for earthquakes generally. The Himalayas, the Pacific I've talked about, Japan, I feel that there's going to be quite a lot of that in the news through 2025. And I have mentioned this already. So one day I feel there will be an absolutely massive earthquake in the Himalayas, but that's for another show. Now, I want to talk about Elon Musk, who I find a really fascinating character, actually. If you've not seen the news in America about this, I'm sure you have, but I'll just go through some of the things that are happening and give my thoughts about it and my predictions about it. Although this is kind of about the UK, it also involves the whole world as well, really, because what happens in America affects the rest of the world. And Musk has come into a position of tremendous power, or is about to come into a position of tremendous power. He has huge influence at the moment, economically, but you imagine what's going to happen with him as his political influence starts to spread. So he's had some interesting things to say about our Prime Minister here in the UK, who is Keir Starmer, who unfortunately is extremely disliked already, but he's been accusing him of failing to prosecute. There's been some grooming gangs. There's been some grooming gangs that were a little while back now, but during his tenure as the director of public prosecutions, Musk is saying that that Keir Starmer was very remiss. Why didn't he follow it forward? Musk's comments have sparked significant controversy here in the UK, and a lot of debate, and a lot going on in the political landscape because of this. And we're having calls to look into this a bit more and dig a bit deeper. What was going on? How far deep does this rabbit hole go? Because I predict, I predict here that this is going to really turn into something quite major. We're going to see much more revelations about many of the hidden secrets of politicians and also Keir Starmer himself. I've said this in my other videos, and I suspect that there were a lot of hidden things in Starmer's life as well, things that he's not revealed. And it's my feeling that some of this is not being revealed and not being dug into, because if you dig too deep, people start saying, hey, the kettle's calling the pot black here. You've the same things going on in your life, not necessarily grooming gangs, but things that are hidden away in Starmer's life that I think he would rather bury. So why didn't they take this further when they had the chance? Why do we have to come back to it now? And why does it take someone outside of the British political system to ring the bell on this? Now, Musk really doesn't like Keir Starmer because, frankly, Keir Starmer said, we're going to have a huge IT conference here in the UK. This is one of the things I think. We're going to have a huge IT conference here in the UK, but we don't want Musk involved. He's not important. Well, you put that to someone with a big ego and a big influence, and they're not going to like it. And I feel that also the potential clampdown on Twitter that Keir Starmer's talking about. I mean, they put people in jail over here for making Twitter or X comments that are not seen as being appropriate. And this really is the epitome of the control mindset that I feel Keir Starmer has. My feeling about that man when I tune into him is that he's a man that wants everything done by the book. The rules for me are not necessarily the rules for you. What I say is not necessarily what I'm going to do. And so far, the British public, those that have voted for him and those that haven't, are up in arms about the fact that they say one thing and do another. Two-tier Keir, they're calling him. So there's been a call for government action generally, and Musk has called for a national inquiry into child exploitation cases. And this intensifies the pressure on the UK government to address these issues much more robustly. And I feel this is going to open up a whole can of worms around the world, because how much child exploitation has been going on that's being covered up? And is Musk highlighting the problems in the UK so that the spotlight can also be turned back onto America? Because there's been a lot of talk about major child exploitation, not just within criminal gangs, but also within the political world. Has maybe him and Trump said, look, let's raise this agenda. We can't raise the agenda here in America quite yet, but you can raise it in the UK. And it might be of political usefulness for both sides of the Atlantic to be exposing these things. Why was it covered up? And if it's not been covered up, who's responsible? So I think Musk is right. He's right in doing this. How much has been swept under the carpet, we ask? Look at the horrors that were uncovered at the BBC. All around the world, the BBC is looked upon as the news channel you can trust, or it used to be. And the world news from the BBC, people would listen to that, on their wind-up radios in exploited and suppressed areas of the world, and you'd listen and get the news properly. But of course, that's all changed. And we found that the BBC, of course, was stuffed full of groomers, and the place where groomers hide is in plain sight. So could our political world be about to explode both sides of the Atlantic because the groomers are going to be exposed again, just as we had the Jimmy Saviles and so forth in the BBC, and so many of them that shocks the public. There's endless, it seems, the people that have been exposed there now. But if they can take positions like that of power, like that in the BBC, how many have taken positions of power in our governments around the world? This is my feeling. My thoughts are I'm seeing this all blowing up in 2025 as a major case. The fuse has been lit here in the UK. And also, I asked myself, why does Musk feel so strongly about these issues on a personal level? Because he had a terrible relationship with his father. He was bullied very much as a child, both at home, I believe, and also, I should imagine, at school as well. I don't know his full story, but I feel he's a person he's had to be the nerd that's had to fight back. You know, if you're intelligent, you'll often get bullied at school. I used to get pushed about a bit sometimes because, you know, I was a bit more intelligent than people around me, I think. And you were seen as, you know, that's not good. So you have to keep your head down, particularly in younger school, in the early school, junior schools. But also I know people that have been brought up in South Africa and brought up in the South African schools. You know, I know Jane's mum went to South Africa, and we know a bit about what happened in the schools there. And there was a lot of bullying happened around in the school, and the British kids were expected to sort of take the bullying and get on with it. There was no sort of inquisition into what's been going on. You just had to get on with it in South Africa. Now, I think Musk had the same problem, unlistened to, and who knows what horrible memories he has of that time, and what else did Musk see? Did he see other things going on as well in his childhood or at some point in his life that makes this a bit of a vendetta for him? You know, he is perhaps, I feel, part of this is perhaps a bit of a vengeance towards Keir Starmer, towards what he represents, you know, because he's become for many of us a symbol of a sort of a socialism out of control. And what did Musk see? What did Musk experience? And is he really wanting to bring these grooming things, particularly to the light, for many personal reasons somewhere in the background? He's seen something. He's witnessed something. He's not told us about, I expect. And he's right to do these things. And it's good that the man is standing up for these things, I feel. These things need to be addressed, whether you like Musk or not. I feel that these things are needed to be addressed. So I'm seeing this. I predict that there's going to be a massive explosion in these things. And I mentioned about it in my 2025 predictions about this, and you know, about the things that were going to happen with the death of some of the people in America that's going to happen after this. And when I say that, I mean we're going to see a few people die, and because of that, when there's going to be some news thrown ahead with that. I'll go into that a bit more later in more detail. Now, there's also these tensions with Nigel Farage, which took everybody by surprise here. Now, those of you in America have probably heard of Nigel Farage because he's been talking in the Trump conferences quite a lot. He's a politician who's just set up a new party here called the Reform. And initially, Musk and Farage shared much mutual support for one another, particularly concerning things like their endorsement of President Donald Trump. But their relationship seems to have soured just recently, following a number of disagreements that have built a bit of a chasm between them. And most of this came over the problem that's associated with another politician here, or political activist, really, called Tommy Robinson. Now, I actually posted on X on his thing that I think he'd made a mistake with this, because Tommy Robinson, it does represent proper far right, I believe. Everything here that's mildly over from the left is considered far right. You know, anything that's not BBC sanitized is considered far right. Even the Tories are considered far right, and they're slap bang in the middle of politics at the moment. But he suggested that Farage should step down as leader of the party because he says he doesn't have what it takes. Now, I don't know who he thinks does have what it takes, and I don't think Tommy Robinson does personally. But my feelings about this, what's going to happen with this, Farage will patch things up with Musk. I predict he will patch things up with Musk. And this will happen when he flies to the inauguration in America for Trump. And if you think about it, think how Musk is like with his staff who work for him for SpaceX and for Tesla and so on. He'll sack a top engineer just like that because the engineer might disagree with him on something, or might say that a target or a deadline is impossible. And he'll say, right, you're right. You think it's impossible. You can't do it in this ridiculous time frame. You're right. Let's get someone else. So he does have a very overbearing and powerful and I think very impulsive attitude towards getting rid of people, which is on one level, it can be a very powerful thing because it can terrify people or inspire people into making a business work on all cylinders. But at the same time, you know, it can be a bit destructive as well, of course. So Farage is being told, you know, yes, you get my support, but you toe the line. And this is a bit dangerous, isn't it, for UK politics? Much as I'd like to see the rise of more parties in the UK, because I think they've had it so cushy over here, and someone like Musk shaking it up is a good thing, in my opinion, or anybody shaking it up is a good thing, in my opinion, because we've got terrible complacency here and the public are distraught by this. What do you think? What's your opinion? What's your opinion of Keir Starmer? What's your opinion of Elon Musk? What do you feel? What was your opinion of Farage? I mean, put it in the comments, because I think the general opinion is that Starmer's failing. Musk needs to shake it up, and Farage also maybe needs to be kept on a shorter leash as well, in some respects. So this whole thing has inflamed international relations as well. I mean, Musk's intervention in the UK politics has drawn reactions from global leaders. The German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, isn't it, or something? I can't remember his name at the moment. Olaf Scholz, I think it is. Well, he dismissed Musk's comments as just as nonsense, they say. Well, that's not a good way. You just can't say things nonsense. You need to be more than nonsense. But also, particularly, I'm interested in what the French President Emmanuel Macron criticized his behavior. He criticized Musk's behavior as being unimaginable. Well, we know that Macron doesn't have much of imagination, but I think he ought to start imagining a little bit, because one of my takes on this, and I've said this in my 2025 predictions, Macron is the next one to fall, and fall soon he will. And I've been saying that for quite a while. I said about the rise of the right in France and in Germany, and it's happening. And I've said about that in my 2025 predictions, you'll remember. But this is going to this is going to take quite center stage soon. We're going to see Macron will be gone soon. And when I say soon, it usually happens soon. It happened with Trudeau when I said it would happen soon. It happened with the assassination attempt on Trump, and it happened days later. I feel Macron's on his way out. And I personally think good riddance. So I'll put my personal opinions in here as well. But France has got a lot of troubles ahead, as I've also predicted in my 2025 predictions. So obviously Keir Starmer, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has jumped in and condemned Musk's statements, and the actual quotes of it is lies and misinformation. Again, these are kind of odd sort of things to say. We always push things as lies and misinformation, a bit like the way on the other side of the fence, Trump calls things fake news when he doesn't agree with something sometimes. But this does emphasize the importance of truth in political discourse, doesn't it? This whole thing, you know, let's get some truth in political discourse. This is what we all want, and nobody's been prepared to debate anything up to now. So other UK politicians have expressed concerns over Musk's influence as well, and the political implications for the UK democracy are quite high. This is quite an important thing. So as I've said already with Starmer, I think he will go soon. I feel whether the Labour government is pulled out soon is another question. I've spoken about this. I feel Starmer's going to be pushed out, because the UK is the only country at the moment that's kind of bucking the trend towards a move to the right in many ways. I mean, we're seeing it in France, we're seeing it in Germany, we're seeing it in Sweden, we're seeing it in the most liberal of all countries, Sweden and the Netherlands. We're seeing it in America. Everybody's got sick and tired of this political trend that is left or liberal or what, or woke, or whatever we want to call it. It's gone completely crazy to the left. And really, most politics usually is most stable when the politicians target the centre ground. This is what the Tories did, didn't they? We must target the centre ground. But the centre ground is a wasteland at the moment. It's been burnt out because people have split to two sides. You know, we've got too many on the far left, too many on the far right, and it gives the opportunity for nutters to come into office in all countries around the world. So it's a very dangerous period ahead. But I feel Starmer is swimming against the star. Whoops. Lost my camera for a minute there. Starmer is swimming against the tide. It's happening soon. He's going soon. And I feel that Labour government will tie itself into so many knots that, but it will fail pretty much by the end of 2025. We're going to see things like, or more things like more tax rises and this type of thing are all going to be coming into to mess up the political situation, and the house building thing is going to cause a lot of upset. We're going to see protests that might even turn to riots in time in the UK, and the unaddressed situations, particularly about illegal immigration. And this is why, people on the far right, Tommy Robinsons and people are being spotlighted in many ways, because they're shouting loud about the uncontrolled migration into the country that is upsetting and destroying the UK and destroying Europe and destroying America. The wrong people are coming in, and those from societies that have not even caught up with Middle Ages. Do we need more sheep herders? That's how perhaps we've got to start thinking about it. And that's a pretty hard view that I'm putting there. But these are the things that I feel Elon Musk is talking about. So I said on about Tommy Robinson thing, I actually wrote on X, on Musk's feed, saying, Musk, that you've misjudged the zeitgeist of the British people with this. The British people do not want somebody like Tommy Robinson. He's too far over. You need to opt with somebody either in the centre ground, more with the Tories, or with Farage, if you want to get those views put across. But now it brings me next to another thought. Who was Elon Musk in a past life? This man is a very, very powerful man. He's done incredible things in his life, right from the start when he set up what was it called? Zip2, wasn't it? Zip2, I think, was his first company. Sold that, made a load of money. Went into PayPal, made a load of money. Jumped into all sorts of businesses that resulted ultimately in us seeing SpaceX and Tesla. And a man with and did the advances in artificial intelligence and implants and all sorts of scary sci-fi sort of stuff, with a personal fortune that is enormous. He must have been someone powerful before. You don't come into this life and do that from scratch. Excuse my cough. We've had a cold. But he's coming from where? He did it with nothing, really. He did it with a few $1,000 or so, I think, when he first migrated from South Africa to Canada. And although they say his father had a emerald mine, he didn't actually have any real money. He did it pretty much from scratch. To get to the level he's got was incredible. He must have been someone important in a past life. And actually, when I look at him, I see the look of an emperor in his face. Now, I've got a couple of pictures here somewhere. Where are we? Yeah, look. I see a bit of a sort of the calmness of an emperor. I see Rome around him. I think he had something to do with ancient Rome. And my thoughts go to the fact I feel he was the Emperor Hadrian. Now, they don't look particularly similar. But I feel Hadrian and him have a lot of similarities, actually. There's a lot of similarities in what they did. Now, I'm just going to think about this because it came to me that I feel he's Hadrian. And why do I feel that? Well, the Emperor Hadrian, he's a Roman emperor. His dates were around 117 to 138 AD. I think that's the times. I've got a note there in front of me actually on that. But he was a quite a powerful ruler in his time, one of the most powerful of the Roman emperors. He had a deep interest in engineering, in particular, very much interested in the advancing engineering at the time, the architecture, and the consolidation of Rome's vast empire. He was he was an engineer emperor. And I get the feeling that similarly, Elon Musk has built his legacy on similar sort of ideas, hasn't he? On visionary engineering. When you think of his projects like SpaceX, Telsa, and the Boring Company, for example, both these people, they share an obsession with pushing the boundaries and leaving behind structures and systems that stand the test of time. What do you think? Do you think he was the same person? I mean, you think about it, Hadrian. Hadrian personally oversaw huge, large-scale architectural projects, such as Hadrian's Wall in Britain. And I think I've got a picture of that somewhere. Here we are, Hadrian's Wall. It was an enormous structure for its time. I mean, you think about building the wall between Mexico and America, and that's a huge job. But in its time, Hadrian's Wall was an enormous accomplishment. And it separated. So we, fed up with the Scots or the what would have been the ancient Britons actually, and push them out the country. So similar sort of thinking actually to what Trump's had, but perhaps that's triggered something in Musk's ancient thoughts, perhaps. So Hadrian built the wall in Britain. And designed projects that defined the Roman Empire, actually. He also built the Pantheon in Rome. Fabulous place. Jane and I have been to the Pantheon. It's a place, the Pantheon too, is another interesting symbol, actually, because it's about multiculturalism in a way. It's about multi-religions, because it was open to all the gods. So if you got it wrong praying to Zeus, you better go in there and pray in the Pantheon as well, because it's a place where just in case we missed anybody. But I get the feeling Musk is not a religious character. Musk is not someone that would believe in somebody like me. I think he'd be intrigued by the idea of reincarnation. I feel he might marvel at the engineering of that place, which was one of the most important steps in engineering ever, really, because the dome in the Pantheon was just absolutely extraordinary and stands to this day. An absolute marvel of concrete, actually. But what a task in its time. So Musk has a similar hands-on engineering idea in many of his companies. He always envisages creating sustainable energy grids, for example, colonizing Mars, building advanced transport systems such as the Hyperloop. These are things that require the same sort of mindset. So I'm going to continue with this sort of this thought for a little while, because what do you think? Do you think he could be Hadrian? Because again, when I think they were both global thinkers as well. Hadrian traveled extensively throughout Rome. He knew the needs of the different provinces. He didn't want to just stick with Rome. He wanted to make a world view, the world of its time view, and unified all the diverse regions of his empire. That was important to him. Now, Musk's doing the same with his influences here in the UK. Is this something that appeals to something in his global thinking mentality? Does he want to do more of this? I predict Musk will start to interfere, if you want to call it, or help, whatever way you want to think of it, in global politics everywhere, not just the UK. The UK is a good example of what's going to happen. So he's a global thinker, Musk. His vision transcends Earth, with projects aiming to unite humanity through our interplanetary travel, for example, doesn't he? And to form renewable energy and things like this. These are global humanitarian thoughts in him, and his companies operate internationally. And his innovations are designed not just for America, but for the benefit collectively of humankind. I think he's a strange man. He has this way of turning on people. I should imagine he's a nightmare to work with, but he also has, I feel, humanitarian ideas at heart. That's my reading of him. I feel that he has that yet. And yet he's also prepared to be as controversial as need be. And Hadrian was like that. He was known for making very unpopular decisions, such as withdrawing the Roman forces from overextended territories in the Roman times. And he was also quite pragmatic in politics, Hadrian was, and ultimately stabilized the empire and preserved its strength. And some of the most fascinating and wonderful structures in ancient Rome, where Jane and I love to visit sometimes, so I know a bit about Hadrian, because it's such a beautiful place we visit when we're in Italy. And many of the great structures there were built by Hadrian. It's astonishing what the scale of what he did. So Musk too is like this too, isn't he? He's no stranger to controversy in what he does. He holds very bold decisions, such as betting Tesla's future on mass market electric vehicles, didn't he? That was a pretty bold move. And firing large portions of Twitter's staff that was a pretty bold move. What's he going to do in America with this? And he's been a very polarizing influence. And Hadrian was like this. He didn't flinch from those sort of things. And yet these choices often lead to groundbreaking outcomes that secure his reputation and his vision and his fortune in many ways. So yeah, so it's that both of them also had a great. Hadrian also had a great passion for creativity. He had a great love for the Greek culture, I believe. He loved the Greek art. He loved Greek philosophy, and he integrated these into Roman life and tried to sort of bring these into the Roman thinking. And in his architectural projects, Hadrian reflected not only practicality, but also an aesthetic and cultural sensitivity. Now, Musk can get really upset if a single bolt is in the wrong place on one of his vehicles, or if the door handles for his cars are not super modern and make you go, wow. He doesn't want just utilitarian sort of simplistic sort of fix for things. He wants things to look good, a bit the same way that Apple transformed computers because they looked good. I remember when I bought Jane a laptop years ago. The laptop she wanted was based upon the screensaver she could see on them. Now, that's how people think, isn't it? It's what we see. It's got to be a work of art. As engineering has also got to be art, and that's something I think again that Musk has very similar to Hadrian. So as I put this idea forward to you, so he was much more technologically inclined, but he's driven similarly with his creativity. So he always integrates design and function. From Tesla's sleek vehicles to the reusable Falcon rockets. I mean, Musk ventures often blend utility with futuristic sort of aesthetics. So he's a pretty amazing person, and he's looking for a legacy too. Trump wants to be remembered, wants to his name to endure. Hadrian's Wall, for example, remains one of the most iconic symbols of the Roman Empire here in the UK. And perhaps this is why Trump wanted to first come to the UK. Has he had previous life draws to the UK? And it showcases his ability. The Hadrian's Wall really does showcase his ability to create enduring monuments that reflect both his practical and visionary approach. And similarly, Musk's goals are very similar. They include creating lasting changes for humanity generally, such as reducing dependency on fossil fuels, for example, advancing space colonization, and ensuring the long-term survival of the human race. So his focus, whether he's right or wrong, I mean, is he right or wrong with that? Who knows? This is big thinking, though. His focus is on sustainably, his focus on sustainability. It very much mirrors Hadrian's intent to preserve the empire's strength for future generations. So I think it's quite an interesting thought process there. Quite an interesting thought experiment there. Who was he in a previous life? What do you think? Perhaps he was someone else. Perhaps you could say he's closer to Nero or the emperors Vespucius who built the Colosseum and that. I mean, who was he really? I mean, a lot of them had Roman emperors had grandiose plans to build, or even the Egyptians. But no, I felt somehow drawn to say, I feel he was Hadrian in a past life. Anyway, we're coming to the end now, and I'd love your comments on some of these things. So it's an interesting thought experiment, I think. I'd really be interested to know what you have to think about this and what you think about Elon Musk. What sort of guy is he? Is he someone we can trust, or is he someone we should fear? Jane feels quite nervous about him and what his role might be in the future. I feel kind of optimistic, but I also feel, he's got a difficult to deal with side. But I'll do some more on Musk in the future because I find his mind very interesting. I want to get inside the mind of Musk. He's going to be a very important person. I've shared a few thoughts with you today, but I'll do some more later. So if you enjoy all this show with what I'm doing, don't forget, always give us that thumbs up. Follow us if you're here for the first time. And don't forget to check out my books. and my workshops. I've got a number of workshops. Well, they're more demonstrations of mediumship at the moment that I'm doing. But sometimes people ask me questions in my workshops, for example, or in my shows, in my group readings, and they sometimes come up on the show here. There's a few more. I'm going to talk about Miramar soon as well, because some of that came up recently. And some of the stuff I also put into the members area. So have a look. You can become a member of the site here as the YouTube. That really helps to keep the channel going, because that helps fund me. Similarly, if you become a patron, that helps fund the channel and helps keep it going. And if you really, really want to help us, you can also help us with our mission with our foundation and so forth. So hopefully you enjoy the show here. You enjoy working with me on the show, sharing our ideas, sharing our thoughts, and I hope to see you again soon. So thank you for joining me. See you all again soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism.
And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. The marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary. That could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay. Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right? A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023. I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York. At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period. I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going. I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were. and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. And that will fail. But he might maybe get wounded or something like that.